Putin News Now. The risks China faces with Russia are highlighted by the Wagner uprising. Xi Jinping, the current leader of China, visited Moscow 3 months ago, where he toasted Vladimir Putin and remarked on Putin's firm support among the Russian people. Since the Wagner private military group launched an insurrection in Russia, Putin's perceived invincibility has been shaken. China watchers say that Xi may now be less open to a close relationship with Russia, which has brought Beijing international criticism and threatened some of its interests abroad, due to the brief mutiny. Subscribe to the New York Times morning newsletter, The Morning. When it comes to challenging the US-dominated international order, China sees Russia as an indispensable ally. Western pressure has resulted in Beijing defending its relationship with Russia despite Putin's risk-taking, as evidenced by his invasion of Ukraine and reliance on private armies. Only if Putin stays in power to protect mutual interests can Xi's long-term bet succeed. Wagner soldiers advanced on Moscow with little to no resistance from regular Russian forces, raising questions about Putin's authority. The uprising's leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was granted asylum in Belarus by Putin, which smelled more like a concession than the action of a strongman. According to Xiao Bin of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences Institute of Russian, East European, and Central Asian Studies, it makes China realize that the Putin government's internal politics are actually quite fragile. As the author puts it, the fragility existed before, but it has increased ever since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. China has publicly reaffirmed its support for the Kremlin in the wake of the uprising, and analysts agree that the relationship between the two will likely remain strong, at least superficially, due to the alignment of the interests of the two leaders. However, Beijing has likely been prompted to consider how a sudden overthrow of Putin would impact China's geopolitical, economic, and territorial interests as a result of the mutiny. As a result, China may become less allied with Russia. During the Soviet era and President Boris Yeltsin's time in office, Russia and China sent dozens of military divisions to face off against each other along their shared 2,600-mile border. However, relations between the two countries have greatly improved during Putin's 23 years in power. If there were to be a change in Russia's government right now, the repercussions would be immediate. Xiao speculated that China would be worried if a new Russian leader moved the country toward a friendlier posture with the United States. That could put China under even more pressure and further isolate it in its rivalry with the United States. John Culver, a former U.S. intelligence analyst on China, has warned that a deteriorating relationship between Beijing and Moscow could force China to once again redeploy troops at the border with Russia. Culver said that China reduced the number of troops stationed along the border in order to better prepare for the possibility of conflict with Taiwan, the South China Sea, and India. "I don't think enough has happened to make them rethink that," the author says. But for the first time they have grounds to wonder if maybe they have to. China would be well advised to take precautions to safeguard its energy imports from Russia in the event of political unrest in Russia. Wen Ti-sung, a political scientist at the Australian National University, argues that China may be able to benefit from Putin's decline. Beijing may decide to step up pressure on Moscow in an attempt to win additional concessions. The proposed Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline would help reroute Russian gas supplies that have traditionally gone to Europe toward China. China may have high hopes for gaining access to additional Russian technology and more favorable terms for the pipeline. The uncertainty surrounding Putin's political future draws attention to the fact that he and Xi have taken very different approaches to their shared goal of diminishing U.S. global power and reshaping the global order in order to better protect their country's interests. Putin has been much more belligerent, initiating the largest war in Europe since World War II. Xi has taken a more aggressive territorial stance in recent years, especially toward Taiwan, the self-governing island democracy that Beijing claims. He has done this by employing economic sanctions and military drills to keep the island on edge. To keep the standoff from escalating into a war that could involve the United States and its allies, he has been careful so far. Xi's efforts have also been directed at strengthening his position at home. Unlike Putin, who is currently facing questions of loyalty, the Chinese leader began a major overhaul of the People's Liberation Army in 2015 to strengthen his grip over the military by removing commanders deemed disloyal or corrupt and elevating his allies. The Wagner rebellion is seen by some as the latest evidence that China's relationship with Russia is becoming more like China's relationship with North Korea. Both countries are known for their unpredictable behavior, and North Korea is known to take advantage of China's reluctance to confront it in order to gain more support from Beijing. Russian exports to China have skyrocketed since the country's invasion of Ukraine. Additionally, Beijing has prevented Moscow from becoming diplomatically isolated. Russia's main incentive is to drive up the price of its friendship in order to get more out of its dealings with China, Sung said. Like North Korea, Russia can appear reckless and unpredictable by doing this. China's backing of Russia has cost it dearly. The conflict has exacerbated China's already tense relations with the United States and hampered its efforts to strengthen ties with Europe. China's aggressive stance toward Taiwan has received more attention from the international community as a result of the fighting in Ukraine. China has avoided these problems at home by treading cautiously. According to official Chinese media, the Wagner incident was not as serious as it seemed, and Putin should be commended for defusing the situation. The Communist Party tabloid Global Times claimed that the West was hyping the uprising to exaggerate Beijing's closeness to Moscow. Prigozhin's assertion that the Russian people were duped into attributing the war to NATO received seemingly no consideration. According to Wang Wen, Executive Dean of the Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University in Beijing, who follows developments in Russia and visited the country after its invasion of Ukraine, the Chinese government still believes in Putin's control over Russia, and also believes in the long-term stability of Russian society. As one expert put it, it would be strategic misjudgment to think that the Wagner incident could divide China and Russia. Yan Shitong, a senior international relations scholar at China's prestigious Tsinghua University, has argued that China's position in the world has been harmed by the war, despite widespread support for Russia. While the United States has yet to send troops to defend Ukraine, European members of NATO have increased their presence in the Asia-Pacific region, as Yan pointed out in a press conference last month in Beijing. According to the Pekingnology newsletter's translation, Yan said, "From a security perspective, this war has not enhanced China's security but has subjected China to more security threats."